So you've watched them once, and then you kind of gathered your thoughts. You talked as a group. I want to do a viewing again because I think the second time around you catch more. And again, our purpose is partially, are they telling a story? But really, it's more about how are they telling that story? Because starting Monday, you guys hopefully have your general arc finalized, and Monday we start writing the script. And part of the script, your DOPs, your directors of photography, and your director are going to have to really work together, not only on the dialogue, but also the visuals. What is the story going to look like? You can storyboard chunks of it like we storyboarded these. You can do it, you'll have to do it verbally via text. You're going to have to write all of that out in your script. So how you're shooting the story is going to come out in your script writing next week. Okay? So we're really looking at, as we watch them a second time, look for what shots do they use, what movements do they use. I'm at a point where I expect you to start using the language. Okay, so if there's a shot you like, you need to call it by its name and then tell us what is it doing for the story. Okay, so we'll start with this one. Do you guys have music?
No.
No, okay. Okay, so let's start with, did they have a story? Okay, what makes it a story?
The suspense and like the water bottle coming out.
Okay, which is what part of our arc?
Rising action.
Okay, so they've got a rising action, right? Rising to what?
The water bottle getting stuck.
Okay, we find out it's stuck. That's kind of the problem, right? That's his conflict. Up before we see him, we get that frustrated face. That's all exposition. He doesn't have a problem until it's stuck. And then the suspense of waiting. So the water bottle being stuck isn't your climax. It gets stuck, that starts his problem. The suspense of, okay, is it gonna happen? Is he, when he kicks it, is it gonna come down? What's the turning point?
When it comes out.
Walks away.
He walks away. He gives up on the problem. Okay, his story changes. It's not resolved, but it changes. So he decides, I'm giving up, I'm walking away, and then we have very little falling action to, what's the ultimate resolution?
The water bottle coming out.
It finally comes out. Okay, so for, a less than a minute long story, it still has that plot. Are there places they could have had more rising action, more falling action? Yeah, probably. But for the basics of what we've done, it does arc. It does have a conflict for our main character. So how do they tell the story? What shots did we like that we think really helped advance the story?
I like the shot of where the water bottle is supposed to come out, and like they let it sit there for a little bit, like it was kind of suspenseful a little bit.
Okay. So both how they shot it, but also the length, the editing, how long it was on screen. What others?
I don't know if it was necessarily a worm's view because the camera wasn't too far off of his face, but when he like makes the angry face, it was
Okay.
lower.
So keep in mind we've got you've got eye level, right? And eye level shifts. So right now, as I'm looking at you guys, this is a high angle. I have to come down here for my eye level. So eye level is going to shift, and it should for wherever your character is. If you've got somebody laying on the floor and you go down to the floor, that's not a worm's eye just because you're on the floor. Now you're eye level. So your high and low angles shift based on where your character's eye levels are. So that was probably, I think you're right, it's not quite a worm's eye. Worm's Eye, we probably would have saw his legs, it would have been too low. That's more of a low angle. And then you've got eye level, high angle, and then Bird's Eye is almost completely above everybody. Hi? Did everybody like the high angle, or the low angle? Why use that shot? What was it either the group who did it or somebody else, what was it intended to do?
I feel like you get a better sense of the face if it's a low angle rather than straight on. And with the standing in front of the vending machine, you get better lighting rather than if it's really close on the face.
Okay. Interesting. I think it allows us to see the vending machine too. Because my initial reaction was, I wish that would have been a close-up. So I really could have saw your facial features and your reaction. Because it initially took me a minute to see, oh, okay, he's irritated, he's annoyed. But I think your justification for why you did it that way makes sense. Other shots. What about their movements? Were there any movements that you felt really helped advance the story?
I thought the ending was kind of funny when he actually hears the water bottle drop or whatever, like he turns around and looks at it and he's just like, what the heck?
Okay, so reaction, and why shoot it the way they did? Because that was almost long shot, could be considered extreme long shot. Why shoot it so far away?
To show that he completely gave up on it.
Okay, why does that show that he completely gave up?
Because he's really far away and it doesn't look like he's gonna come back.
Okay, is that why you guys did it? Okay, so it's to show the distance. Again, we could have did a medium shot from here up of him throwing his arms up, but to show he got really, really far away before the bottle came out. I really like, and movements I think are one of the toughest ones to use intentionally. I really like their movement shot at the beginning. And we've got a couple combined movements. So we've got an extreme long initially, and then we go to a pan. So we pan right, and then we cut. All right, they could have did that quite a few different ways, but what's the purpose of the pan? What does it do for the story?
And brings the vending machine into view.
Okay, yeah, it's pulling, now we can see the vending machine. They could have just cut to this shot, they could have had him walking, cut, now he's standing in front of it, but we feel it come into view as the character feels it come into view at the same time. Okay, they could have did this as a tracking, they could have had the head-on long shot of him walking, and then they could have turned to either an over-the-shoulder or a first-person perspective of him approaching the vending machine. They all would have done the same thing. It's just a question of what's the look you're going for, what's going to really convey the message. Any others on this one? Any other thoughts, comments, things you like? Okay. Do you guys have music?
Nope.
No.
Okay. I feel like you're underestimating Officer Ansell's speed. Okay. Did they have an arc? And if so, what is it?
The suspense is like created when he's walking in and you don't know what he's gonna do when he gets up to Ryder.
Okay, so we have a lot of mystery in that we're still in the exposition, right? There's a lot of mystery as far as who is this, what are they doing? You definitely have this feel of suspense and mystery with the characters themselves as they're slowly revealed to us, right? What's the problem? Is there a conflict?
Ethan runs away.
Okay, Ethan runs away. Why?
There's a police officer.
Police officer catches him. Doing what? Huh?
Well, let's do like a drug deal.
Okay, some kind of deal is happening, right? And then the deal goes south. That's the conflict. If the officer hadn't walked out of wherever he was and saw the deal happening, right? They would have parted their ways, flat storyline, nothing would have happened. We wouldn't have had the rising action, the climax. There would have been no conflict to resolve. So it wasn't the deal that causes the problem, it's the act of them getting caught. Okay, so now they have a problem. What's our rising action, turning point, resolution?
Rising action is following Ethan while he makes an escape.
Okay, so we've got his escape happening. I was constantly waiting for the camera to flip and show me if he was being pursued. I think that was the one piece I would have liked to see, just to build that, oh my gosh, is he gonna get away? So some shots of the pursuer would have helped too. What's the climax? What's the turning point? Things change in the conflict. It's not fixed, but the story changes.
When Ethan definitely gets away and then
Okay.
turns back to Ryder.
So we have one character getting away. What happens to the other one?
He's gone.
He gets caught, right? So that's a turning point. For each of those characters, their plots are going to veer in different directions. We don't know if eventually Ethan's going to get caught. We don't know yet what's going to happen with Ryder. We still want to see what happens, right? And there's still a little bit of mystery. What else do we want to know?
Pikey ran when he just gave him
Okay.
what was it, a sausage?
Why are they running? We don't know that yet though, right? What's in the bag? What are they getting caught for? What are they getting arrested for? What was the deal for? We don't know that. I think perhaps some more shots of the bag itself before and during the deal would have helped build that, okay, what's in the bag? What's in the bag? What's in the bag? So again, how can we better build that suspense with more shots? What's the resolution?
Officer Oswald catches Ryder.
Catches him. That's the
Following action.
that's the climax though, where he's arrested. What happens after that? That works towards the resolution.
He puts him in the cop car.
Okay, we have him putting him in the car, so we know he's definitely been arrested. Okay, we finally get to see, that's the resolution, we finally get to see what's in the bag. And we go, oh, what was the big deal, right? So, what shots do they use? I've talked about a couple that they can add. What shots did they use that you really felt helped tell the story?
I don't know if it would be like a medium or a medium close-up, but when they show Ethan, when he sees Officer Anspaugh,
That was a good one.
His reaction at this
Yeah.
point? Okay?
that, yeah.
So again, why would a close-up really not work with this?
Because his shoulders move and
Yeah,
you
you
see
wouldn't
him
be
kind
able
of
to
like
see his body
turn.
language.
Right, it's a whole body reaction, and typically close-ups we want eyes. Well, we can't have that because he has glasses on, which is fine, but you just have to think, how are we going to get that reaction without the eyes? So the fact that it's a whole body movement, but why not a long shot? Why not show his entire body?
The idea was like it was supposed to be like my perspective
Okay?
of like so like the cameraman is me, and it's like all of a sudden I see him like freak out, turn and run.
Okay?
So I guess that's kind of the whole like idea of like the medium close up, so that
Okay.
because like you're not gonna see the whole body when you're like looking at somebody unless like you're farther away from them. Like when you're as close as like we were you're only gonna see maybe their waist up or something like that.
Okay.
You're not gonna see the whole body.
Did you guys feel like this was a first-person perspective shot? Did you feel like you were looking at him through Ryder's eyes? Is
Feel
that
like
how you interpreted it?
If it would have turned, like, if, then the next shot would have been, or the shot before, was that supposed to be through Ethan's eyes?
No, that was more of just kind of like over his shoulder.
I feel like here you would have had to been more on you to get the feeling that you were from your perspective when looking at Ethan.
Yeah.
Because you don't really get the feeling that it's coming from you when it turns back to Ethan. So I feel like that was where I don't get the first person point of view when it gets to this part.
But I think if you would have done the one on, or if you would have done it from Officer Oswald's point of view, like him seeing the deal, because, I mean, necessarily it doesn't look like he actually like sees it, he just kind of sees your back rider, but if it would have like come from him like seeing the deal and seeing Ethan like freak out, that would have been cool, and see him start running away.
I think I agree. That's the first-person perspective I wanted. Was we see him come out. Now I want to flip behind the officer so that I know he's seen it. And then to do that first person from his point of view, his reaction. Or even it maybe would have fit better from your point of view too. But I didn't take this as a first person point of view shot. I just took it as a medium shot. What else? What else did they do well that helped advance the story as far as their shots?
One of my favorites was the overhead shot of the deal.
Okay?
I think that was like probably the best way to illustrate what was happening there.
How did you get it up so high?
We took one of the tall chairs from the Commons and Aaron stand on it. As Caleb and Officer Oswald, I kind of stood there waiting to catch Aaron in case he fell.
I agree. I think this is one of my favorites. It's so jarring. Like, you don't expect it, but it's perfect. To shoot this as a close-up from the side would have worked, but this just feels so different that you latch onto it. And I think it's up there for a good amount of time, too. It's not quick, which would have been a little too jarring.
And it shows the dollar sign.
Yeah, I like your money. Any others?
I liked it when you could see at the very beginning when Ethan opens the door and then you just see his feet walking. I thought that had a good aspect because you're like, oh, I wonder where he's going.
And in that first shot, you get to see him pulling the bag as he walks in.
So we're gonna get to this probably early next week. You're gonna have an ed puzzle that has to do with this. It's the official name for that is an introduction by parts. So you introduce pieces of a character, everything but the face, usually. Indiana Jones is one of the ones you'll see in the ed puzzle that does that really well. So you kind of slowly reveal the character, but you're showing us parts of the character that are important. So we get his feet, we get his hand on the door, the bag is really what's most important, right? And they could have continued to do this. They could have showed maybe the back of his head, his hat, right? As they're trying to reveal who it is. Any other pieces that we really liked?
Another thing I saw, yeah, when they were pulling away, like right here.
Oh, where it says penis.
Yeah, that, no, but then on the sidewalk here, you can see Ryder and Ansel standing there.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't
The
know.
whole
Oh, I
idea-
totally
I
missed
didn't know
that.
The whole
I
idea
saw
with
someone
that was like,
there.
it was supposed to like kind of centered on the back of the Prius, because the whole joke is like, it's a Prius as a getaway car.
Right?
Like,
I'm
you
impressed
wouldn't think of a
noticed
Prius
that.
to get away from like a cop car.
Right.
It would have been funny if you would have had Officer Oswald standing there, because I think you guys meant it for like Officer Oswald was chasing Ethan out, and then Ryder was just like standing back there, and then he came through the doors, right?
The kind of idea was like, Ethan gets away, I'm slower, like from after the deal, like I didn't realize like what was going on as quickly. Like as Officer Ansel like gets closer to me, as behind, like I can feel him, but by this point Ethan's like out the door, and then I start to run, and like there's supposed to like the whole idea was like there's another officer like kind of waiting outside the door,
But we didn't have access.
but we didn't have access to two different officers. So we see Officer Ansel again, and like as I run out the door, then like he like pushes me against the wall.
I
That
like
was
the
kind of the
idea of
idea.
one officer, because if there was another officer waiting there, he would have gotten Ethan. So I like the idea of one, but
the thing was kind of like Ethan gets away before the other officer gets there, kind of
Okay.
thing.
So I think one of the biggest issues is the time, the actual timeline. So the time it takes from when he notices him, the running, I think that was a good cut. We're outside, because that could have been a really long shot. But even these pieces are almost a little bit too long. Just because I'm going, how the heck did the officer not catch him by this point? Now, that may be because I know the setting. I know, I'm familiar with the location. I know that distance. It's not a logical amount of time for this chase to take place. But that may also have to do with me being familiar with the location.
We originally were going to have, like, the way to explain it was, Officer Onswell was immediately going to tackle Strofe and put him in handcuffs on the ground in that hallway. And that was going to explain how Ethan got away, because he's focused on Ryder. And then we ended up not doing that. I can't remember why we didn't, but it was just, I got pushed aside and that's what we went with.
So I think that may have been, story-wise, a little bit clearer. How could they have sped up the escape?
Time lapse it.
Other than telling Ethan to run faster.
Time lapse it.
Okay, you could have done a time lapse. How do action films make their fight scenes, their action scenes seem more chaotic and faster?
There's
There's always a lot of movement.
lots of different angles.
Lots of movement, lots of angle changes. Those two things combined, now there's lots of cuts. So your editors aren't letting these cuts stay on screen for very long. That's why I say I like that we go from here and then we get a cut. Even though we know logically he's not gone from that point in the hall to the end that quickly, it still cuts time and makes it move faster. Again, the cut here does the same thing, it was a little late. I think if we saw less of the running or the running from different shots a little bit quicker, it would have moved that pace along a little bit faster. Plus, it wouldn't have appeared that he was going as slow as he was. You can make it look like he's moving faster.
Yeah, it almost looked like Ethan was going in slow motion. I thought, especially in the hallway, I don't know if it was just the way he was running that he made it look like he was going in slow motion,
Right.
but I was really getting the vibe that he was like initially like running slow.
In
So-
a certain sense, I almost thought it was like comical because he was going so
Oh.
slow.
Yeah.
I agree.
So I think like maybe it kind of worked because your guys' whole story is based off of like it being kind of funny. So I think it kind of worked for him going so slow. Maybe more cuts, but like I think it was better than him just like sprinting because I don't think that would have been as funny.
So here's the only other one I would say, this last shot. Okay, known as a continuous shot. There are no cuts beginning to end, but continuous shots need to be intentional. How does this shot feel after everything else that's happened?
Slow.
Why?
Because you're just kind of like almost awkward because you're almost just kind of like awkwardly walking up to the officer like. I feel like if there was a cut from like the distance he put him in the police car and then it cuts and next thing you know he's opening the bag.
Right.
I feel like that would have been.
And there's one point where it starts to tilt down towards the bag and then it kind of stops. And you see like the officer's chest and part of the window, and then it pauses for a second and then goes all the way down to the bag.
So that's when I say your movement has to be intentional. I think this is a case where you guys just filmed it in one shot to film it. This is where editors can do some cutting so that it's not as awkward, because we've got kind of this awkward push, which you really, unless you're going for the first person Steadicam look, you should be on a dolly, on wheels of some type when you're pushing in or pulling out. So we've got the push in, and then we've got the partial tilt, and then the rest of the tilt. So it just didn't feel as polished as everything else did. So some cutting in there by editors would help, or cutting while you're filming. So
One other thing with that last shot, is if you pay attention close enough, like you can actually see Aaron's reflection in the window.
Oh, yeah,
But we
I
didn't
saw
realize
that.
till later on. And it was kind of one of those things where he had to go do something at main campus and he was already gone, so it was like, well, we can't refilm it.
Yeah, definitely watch reflections, watch shadows. We see your shadow in that shot too. So you've got when you've got lighting, especially outside, pay attention to where the cameraman's shadows are, and you've got to work around that stuff and be aware of it. And then people in the background too. I'm impressed that he caught that. Okay. You guys have music?
Mm-mm.
Very subtle. Okay. What's the story?
That if you cheat, then you get, like, it's not good if you get caught.
Okay, so that's kind of our lesson, right? Our theme. What's their problem?
I feel like it's Hannah trying to explain to Peyton how to do something and she's not getting it. So
Okay,
Hannah gets frustrated.
okay. So that's our exposition, right? We see that frustration playing out. What's the problem? What do they do that starts their problem? They could have just kept studying and hashed it out until she got it. What do?
They went in the hallway and made a deal they were gonna cheat.
Yeah, so they make this decision, they make this choice as a team that they're gonna cheat, right? And that starts the rise of our arc, okay? What's the turning point? What's the climax? Things change. What?
And they get caught.
They get caught, right? So we know from that moment on, before that, we're kind of like, oh, are they gonna get away with it? Is he gonna notice? They get caught, and then it goes downhill from there to the ultimate. Should I be concerned that none of our stories really had happy endings? Like, none of them end well.
Jake
So we-
kinda does, 'cause he gets the water bottle
Yeah, he
eventually.
gets his water in the end.
But he doesn't go back for it, so we
Yeah.
don't know if he gets it. We don't know if he's completely just
He just
given
turns
up.
and just starts walking and that's when we stop.
Okay. What shots did we see that helped tell the story? Yeah.
When Mr. Sessler gave him the F,
Okay? What shot is that and why do we like it?
You can tell that he's annoyed that they cheated, that he's
Okay.
mad that they cheated.
So maybe some direction for your actor. He's mad, he's angry, he's annoyed.
What's funny, he did that by himself. I didn't even say like, oh, well, make sure you're angry. He was just angry.
I have to say, he was so proud. He left me a note. He's like, I was in a film today.
He had us send it to
He
him.
was very excited.
Now also
What
love
what
that-
about that shot do you like though?
How it's like above his head and you can like, it's like right down on him watching, or him writing it, that stuff.
Okay, so it would have been a very different effect, even as a high angle from the front, it would have been very different.
I think that it, like, I think it was good told like that, but you could have done like a really close shot of just his hand writing it. That would
Okay.
have worked too.
So another way to shoot it, or maybe combine both.
Yeah, and you can, like at the beginning, you could tell if they were gonna record it, you could have like cut it a little bit so it went straight to him writing it and not like he paused. See like right there, you could,
By not cutting that, what does the pause make us think about the teacher character?
Yeah, I didn't get it after that.
He seems to hesitate, which if he is as irritated and is as sure as we think he is, there shouldn't be a hesitation. Interesting. What else?
So I like when Hannah and Peyton walk in and it pans over to his feet and it slowly reveals him, like watching him walk in, and it gives the appearance that he's like the stern teacher, that he's already like,
Suspicious.
yeah, he's already kind of like, I don't know how to say it.
So again, we talk about intentional movement and combining these shots. We've got what's combined. You already said a pan and a tilt, right? So the intentional combination, this movement feels like it makes sense, like it was put there for a reason. I think the only thing I would say is whenever you start or stop a movement, let there be some lag time. So directors, when you say action, your videographer should have a good 3 or 4 seconds where they hold and then the movement begins. And then a few seconds at the end of a movement, either before you cut or before the next movement starts. It felt a little quick. I almost wanted there to be a little bit of a pause at his feet and then the tilt to start. And part of that is you don't want your viewers to get dizzy or feel like the speed is too fast. So that's something that directors and videographers, you're gonna have to really work with your actors on. So if you want the actors to start walking and you're gonna track, you might have to say, count to 10 after I say action before you start moving. That way your cameraman has a nice gap where they're holding the shot and then the actor movement starts. Okay, something you might want to think about, your editors will appreciate that because it gives them space to cut rather than maybe cutting it too close to the movement. What else do we see? You're like, or is there anything that you saw that maybe you would have done differently?
the beginning, like I think it was like the first or second shot, when they were like at the desk reading and on the computer and everything, I think that the movement made me a little bit dizzy. Like when they went from like behind to in front, that I didn't really like, because it was not very balanced.
Okay, so essentially a boom shot, right? Typically you would have the camera and the cameraman would be in a chair and the whole crane moves at once. In the professional world, that's what you would see. So it's a tough shot to get smooth. Even with a steady cam, still a tough shot to do smoothly. This is where if you can get the camera on like a selfie stick and have it up, it might be a little, because were you on a chair? You weren't, you were holding it up?
Yeah, I was just standing.
So a selfie stick might be a little bit smoother as far as being able to control how you bring it down. Because it felt like you were on a chair and then you had to step down off the chair. So, what else? Things we liked, things we maybe change or film different?
One thing I probably wouldn't do is like you could tell that they were talking,
Yeah.
but like it's kind of like you don't know what they're saying, so it kind of just adds like you want to know what they're saying, but at the same time it's like normally silent films, like there's no, like you can't tell they're even talking, it's just like looks and glares and stuff like that.
Yeah, we didn't necessarily know that until like halfway through that silent film that you don't talk.
Okay, so maybe a style piece from, honestly, how many of you have actually seen a legit silent film? Very few. So I felt like this shot was long too. So I think if you had realized that and then just used facial expressions, you could have done, again, close up, close up, close up, close up, some quick cuts so that we see the expression and it feels like it's this heated back and forth that's happening. That's where your cutting could come in to make that emotionally feel a little bit more heated and arguing. Or some cutaways of the hands, or you know, the stomping of the feet, so that we get the feel of an argument. Okay, let's hear from everybody. Now that you've gone through and shot it, what would you do? What would you have done differently on your own film, either filming or editing? What would you have done different?
I think us as a group, we would have tried to do things a little smoother
Okay.
when filming and stuff like that. Our end, like the end of our movie was better than the beginning. So I think maybe, well, obviously not talking, but getting like shortcuts would have helped a lot in the beginning. Because at the end, there were more shortcuts than at the beginning.
So watching how long our shots are on screen, how often that changes.
I feel like with us, if we would have used more hand gestures and not just facial expressions, it could have helped tell the story more.
Okay.
And we didn't necessarily realize how important those truly were until I just now looked at it like
Okay.
2 minutes ago.
So the cutaway detail shots.
Yeah.
We filmed scene to scene, like the classroom, I feel like we could have done all of it in the classroom just at the same time, but we didn't. We went from the first scene to the out in the hallway and then back into the room.
Yes.
I feel like if we just picked this the spot where we wanted to film first and then get everything done in that area and then move on out to the hallway and then do the hallway stuff.
So I'm really glad you said that, because that is something that we're gonna have to think in the next 2 weeks as we start making your production schedule. You by no means have to film chronologically. And that's where, who are the production designers? So you're in charge of casting, costume, props, set, raise your hands. Okay, that's where you guys really have to think about, when are we gonna have costume changes? How are the rooms gonna change? As far as, this all happened in one day, right? Your film did. So if you were to film the initial classroom scene one day, and then the ending classroom scene another day, what's gonna change? Their outfits change, right? The room might even change, the layout of the room. Little things like that that are gonna make people question your timeline, you have to think about, especially when you're not filming chronologically. And I don't think I've ever had a group that their final film was filmed in order.
And on the end scene, I think it might have been Jake's group or Ryder's group, but they came in and we kind of made sure they weren't in the shot, but we had to make sure they weren't. So,
Okay.
and before they weren't even in the room, so it would have been a lot easier to do maybe.
I feel like with ours anyways, like adding music to ours would have made it more suspenseful.
Okay.
If we would have added like some sort of like mystery music or something like that, because like it kind of helps with that idea of like what's going on.
And I think yours is one that the music could have changed throughout, and it would have made sense to have that change in music. Anything you guys would have done differently?
I like got the camera settings right.
Okay, so if you're gonna use the cameras, had I been here, I would have done a run through with you on how to use them. But if you use either of our black cameras, there are settings you have to change, or your footage will be blurry. No matter what you do, it'll come out blurry. Just because they're used as photography cameras, but also as video cameras. Anything else?
I think at the end of ours, when I turn around, I think we could have gone a little bit longer.
Walking back.
And maybe showed that I walked back to it.
Okay.
Or went the other direction and,
Just forgot about the.
yeah, say that I still gave up on it and kept walking away. Either one instead of just cutting it there.
Okay.
I feel like with ours, when Mr. Susser slaps the ruler down, that unintentional zoom afterwards, we meant to zoom, but it was like late. It makes me laugh. It makes us all laugh so much because it reminds us of The Office. And I feel like if this was for our actual movie, then we would have had to reshoot it because we wouldn't want people to laugh. It was so unintentional.
So are your shots conveying maybe something that you don't want them to convey? I think that's the same thing for the group with Ethan running. Was that their intention for it to be kind of drawn out and humorous? Okay,
Like,
So-
we can't have anything in our movie be like super humorous like that, otherwise it's gonna offend people.
so what's the tone of your film, right? The Office, does anybody know what genre The Office is considered?
Comedy, drama.
Comedy, drama, it has a specific name though, for the style it's filmed in.
Oh, because they look at the camera and stuff like that?
So The Office is really, it uses documentary style filming as if it's happening, playing out right in front of you. It doesn't feel scripted, but it's fictional and it's comedy, so they're actually called mockumentaries. They're making fun of documentary style. And there are actually a lot of different types of documentary, but that's why, and I think you're right, we now associate that with The Office. The TV show The Community did a similar episode that was mockumentary style, and it has a particular feel to us now because The Office is so popular. But you're right, you have to watch and make sure, is the filming appropriate for your genre? I think we watched the scene from Django the other day, and I think Quentin Tarantino has an interesting way of using some action style filming pieces. So I didn't show you the part, but when they walk into the bar, the bartender is actually changing a light bulb. He's up on the bar, standing on the bar, and they walk in and the camera does that exact quick zoom. So they don't just cut to the bartender's face, it's like the camera all of a sudden zooms in on the bartender's face, and it's really weird for such a serious movie. And it feels out of place, but that's kind of Quentin Tarantino's style, is these short, quick cuts that kind of make you laugh when you're like, I know I shouldn't be laughing, but I can't help it because of the way it's filmed. Okay. How do we feel about film shots? Camera angles, okay, particularly directors and videographers, you guys have got to feel good about these. They have to become second nature because you're going to write them into your script. And then when we get on set, it's even more important for you all to speak the same language, because if the director and the videographer chat and they say, we had this written as a long shot with a push in on the main character to a medium shot, and they film it and you say, you know, we really don't like that, let's switch it up, let's move it to just the medium shot with a back away. You have to know, videographers, you have to know what the director wants. Directors, you have to know how to communicate that. Production designers, you're in charge of making sure the actors know what they're supposed to be doing and what they need to change to make that new shot happen. It's really got to all work together, and you have to speak the language. Otherwise, things start to get clunky, things get lost in translation. Your director's trying to say one thing and someone else isn't understanding it, or they're saying something different. Okay? Story arcs are due today. If they're on chart paper, I just need to have them, let's say just on the back table, lay them out. But I want physical copies of them, I think, because most of you did the big paper arcs. You guys please attach your cards so that they don't fall off when I'm gonna have to fold yours to take it home. If you need to use study in day today to work on that, feel free. If you need a pass to let your facilitator know that that's what you're working on, that's fine. I would just ask that you maybe find a classroom to work in rather than asking to go work in the commons. We're gonna try to avoid that during study in. Okay. You do have a homework task. There's a set of key terms on slides that have to do with the different parts of the script. Typically, I would give you a script to annotate over the weekend, but the script that I've used in the past it was taken down from the website, so I'm gonna have to try to find it now over the weekend. Okay. If you didn't watch the Ed Puzzle, then you didn't watch it. You need to watch it. You should be able to go back and view it still in Ed Puzzle. If you can't, let me know. But with the Ed Puzzles, with any kind of assignments I give you that are relevant to us having a conversation or part of our conversation the next day, I won't accept them late. You still need to watch them, because you still need to have the information, but I won't accept, or I won't give credit late. Okay, so come in Monday ready for our workshop to go over the different parts of a script. I'll have a script for you guys to look at Monday and kind of tear apart and understand how they're written. Okay? All right? Finish out today.
There's no
I know what I'm saying.
I said,